February 18th, 1977, London. A 25-year-old journalist steps out of a North London townhouse and straight into a freezing rain. Tucked inside his coat pocket is a single cassette tape. And on that tape is 3 hours of testimony about a secret so dangerous the British government will spend the next 40 years trying to bury him for it. He makes it exactly 14 steps before his world changes. Stop. Special branch. Before Duncan Campbell can even process the badges flashing under the streetlights. His arms are wrenched behind his back, and steel bites into his wrists. The tape is ripped from his pocket and he is charged as a traitor for the simple crime of asking questions. But here is what those officers did not know. They just made the biggest mistake of their careers. Because that tape was only the beginning. Behind the scenes, a network was breathing. 33. White domes rising from the English moors. Giant satellite dishes hidden in the Australian desert. Listening posts in New Zealand, Canada, and the mountains of West Virginia were all connected in the dark. And every single day, this network was pulling 300 million messages out of thin air. Your phone calls, your telegrams, and your whispered conversations were all being captured, sorted by supercomputers, and stored. 5 governments built it. 5 governments swore it did not exist. And its code name was Echelon. I am the digital sleuth. And in this cybercrime documentary, we are diving into how one man used physics and literal military trash to expose the world's first global dragnet. To truly understand Echelon, you have to understand the man who hunted it. Duncan Campbell was not a spy. He was a physics-trained journalist with a relentless brain for patterns. In the mid-70s, the internet as we know it did not exist. But the digital exhaust certainly did. Radio waves, microwave relays, and the first generation of communication satellites were beginning to blanket the entire Earth. In 1976, Campbell published a story titled The Eavesdroppers. It was the first time the public ever heard the name GCHQ, the United Kingdom's equivalent to the NSA. Before this article, the British government literally did not acknowledge that GCHQ even existed. The fallout from that story was immediate. His American co-author was deported, and Campbell was put under constant 24/7 surveillance. MI5 tapped his phones, followed his car, and shadowed him even when he went to the grocery store. He was marked as one of the most dangerous men in Britain, not because he carried a weapon, but because he carried the truth. Then came the ABC trial, named for the defendants Aubrey, Barry, and Campbell. It was intended to be a show trial to scare journalists away from state secrets. Instead, it became a circus, and the prosecution's case fell apart when it was revealed the jury foreman was a former Special Forces operative who was lobbying for a conviction before the trial even started. The secrets Campbell had were deemed so obvious to anyone with a physics degree that the judge eventually threw the case out. Campbell walked free. But during that trial, a witness slipped. They mentioned a listening post in Cyprus, so classified it made the prosecutors turn pale. That slip was the thread. And Campbell started pulling. While every other journalist in Britain was chasing political scandals or celebrity gossip, Duncan Campbell was doing something that looks a lot like modern cybersecurity research. He spent his nights in dusty libraries and his weekends in obscure archives, cross-referencing microwave transmission paths and calculating the orbits of geostationary satellites. Think about the technical complexity here for a second. This was long before Google Earth. He had to manually calculate where a satellite should be in the sky, and then find the ground station positioned to catch its spillover signal. One by one, he found them. Pine Gap in the Australian outback with its 33 antennas, Menwith Hill in the UK, and Sugar Grove in the mountains of West Virginia. But the smoking gun did not come from a high-tech hack. It came from a dumpster. Peace activists near Menwith Hill raided the base's trash and handed Campbell a bundle of damp, discarded documents still wet from the rain. Among the technical jargon and procurement codes, he saw it. A single word. Echelon. This was the secret link to the UK-USA agreement, an alliance of 5 English-speaking nations that agreed to share everything. There was a legal loophole in this alliance that would make any modern privacy advocate scream. And it was a masterpiece of digital deception. Under their laws, the NSA could not spy on Americans, and GCHQ could not spy on Britons. So they simply swapped. The NSA would spy on the UK. GCHQ would spy on the US. And then they would share the data. It was the ultimate dark web-style workaround, decades before the dark web even existed. In 1988, Campbell finally published Somebody Is Listening in the New Statesman. And he laid it all out for the world to see. He told the public that every fax, every telex, and every phone call was being filtered by dictionaries. These were supercomputers looking for specific keywords like protest or the names of foreign politicians. The world's reaction at the time was almost silence. They laughed, and they called him a conspiracy theorist, even when the European Parliament launched an investigation in the late 90s, confirming Echelon was being used for industrial espionage. The general public did not feel the threat. They found evidence that the US was spying on Airbus just to help Boeing win massive contracts. But then, September 11th happened. After 9/11, the privacy versus security debate ended overnight. Echelon did not go away. It evolved and moved from the air into the cables. In 2013, when Edward Snowden walked out of an NSA facility with a thumb drive, he confirmed everything Campbell had said 25 years prior. But the scale had grown exponentially. We had moved from Echelon to programs like Prism, X-Keyscore, and Tempora. Today, as the digital sleuth, I see the remnants of Echelon in every major data breach and surveillance scandal. It is the same logic used in modern phishing attacks and financial fraud. The system built to protect us created the very tools that can be turned against us. When intelligence agencies find a zero-day vulnerability in your phone, they do not tell the manufacturer to fix it. They keep it open so they can use it, but that backdoor is eventually found by cyber criminals, leading to the massive ransomware attacks we see in the news today. Duncan Campbell's story is not just a history lesson. It is a warning for the digital age. We live in a world where the five eyes have been joined by thousands of private eyes, from data brokers to social media giants and hackers for hire. So, how do you protect yourself in the shadow of Echelon's successors? First, use end-to-end encryption. Those dictionaries from the 80s could not read what they could not decrypt. Use apps like Signal or Proton Mail. Because if you are not using encryption, you are essentially sending a postcard that anyone in the sorting office can read. Second, understand the metadata trap. The NSA famously said they kill people based on metadata. They might not need to hear your call if they know who you called, for how long, and exactly where you were standing. Third, use a reputable VPN to mask your IP address and reduce your digital footprint. And finally, practice radical transparency with yourself. Be skeptical of unsolicited requests for information. Major phishing attacks today use the very same social engineering techniques Duncan Campbell used to get his first leads. Support digital rights organizations like the EFF. They are the modern-day Duncan Campbells fighting the legal battles that the rest of us cannot. Duncan Campbell was once facing 14 years in prison for telling the truth. Today he is recognized as a pioneer. He proved that no matter how many white domes they build, or how many billions they spend on black files, the truth has a way of leaking out, usually through a dumpster, or a brave soul with a cassette tape. If you want to see how Edward Snowden took Campbell's torch and sprinted into the digital age, check out our deep dive into the NSA's secret data centers right here. I am the Digital Sleuth. Stay curious. Stay skeptical. And for heaven's sake, encrypt your data.